and he was a sniper in the army, and the last 3 years has been running a business he founded called Extreme Resilience. So I'm super excited to hear about the advice, the guidance that he has for you guys. He's become a real expert in health economics, relationships, and opportunities. And he's got a book called Founder Hero, and those that hero, the acronym is that, or those four words. So, James, thank you, man, so much for, I say, Jim, for coming on today and spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's my pleasure. I mean, this is the population that I care the most about, and
Yeah.
my purpose in life now is to serve, to continue to serve the veteran and also like first responder, law enforcement type kind of
Yep.
population. There's a lot of convergence and crossover there, and. So yes, thanks for the introduction. I served as a sniper for 8 years in the military, taught sniper school, and like a lot of other veterans, ended up having to deal with some PTSD after I got out,
Mm.
which was interesting because like while I was still in, I did a 15-month deployment in Iraq, and naturally like driving around was challenging for a while, especially if I couldn't see the sides of the roads or I still hate fireworks, loud noises. Used to just like make me have a panic attack. Um, but I was in college studying molecular biology and biochemistry because of my interest in mycology, actually. I got super into permaculture, regenerative agriculture, and the study of mushrooms. But because of what I was going through at that time, um, I actually ended up discovering functional medicine, and that was a pretty huge shift for me as I was trying to figure out just how to be okay again. Because I went from, E6 teaching sniper school, surrounded by college kids, and, my mental health just declining rapidly. And so, for those of you that don't or have never heard of functional medicine, it basically is root cause medicine. It's instead of managing symptoms with medications, like in allopathic care, you're actually getting to the root of the cause of the issues that you're dealing with. And the reason why this is so important is because it puts you back in the driver's seat of your own health. And that's something that I would like to communicate to all of you today. And so, with my business, Extreme Resilience, our company motto is own your purpose. And I say own your purpose because, you know, identifying your purpose can be challenging in and of itself, right? Especially you get out of the military where, they crammed purpose up your ass the whole time you're there. That's your job as a leader. But when you get out, it's important to realize that now it's your job to provide yourself with task and purpose. And, you know, purpose and meaning, typically means that you're connected to a cause that is much greater than yourself, right? Like I've heard people say before, it's when you care about something more than yourself. It's kind of a funny way to think about it. And so I put this program together. That hero framework that he was talking about is basically like an actionable philosophy of taking characteristics of mental, physical, spiritual, and environmental wellness and applying them to the areas of our life that we really care about. Because if your health is messed up, that's your number one problem. If your earning potential is trash, your ability to accumulate wealth, that's obviously something that we all care very much about. Our relationships are obviously something, that's super important to us, both personally and professionally. And then finally, what kind of opportunities, what kind of purpose are we able to pursue, right? So, in order to own your purpose, you need to be in a position to do that, to be able to step into those shoes. And if you're not taking care of your health, your mental health, you're not, if you're somebody that continuously has this pattern of behavior where you're entering into relationships that no longer serve you, like with toxic people, if you feel attacked, you know what I'm talking about, and that's stuff that, is important to educate yourself on, right? So personal accountability is, paramount. I think a lot of you guys probably already understand that. Um, but, it'll glare you in the face out in the civilian world when, it's up to you to figure it out, right? So, I'm sharing my screen here. I just figured I would kind of share with you, and to be honest with you, all of this stuff has come from uh over a decade of me trying to figure it out. Like I have been in the point in the past where, I was feeling pretty suicidal. It took me a long time, even though like even after I discovered functional medicine, it still took me another 5 years to, actually put it into action, like eat healthy, exercise, like do all the things that I knew I should be doing, because I was too busy being subscribed to this idea that the military fucked me up. When in fact, after probably 8 years, I finally realized that I probably became a sniper and was successful in doing so because of the experiences I had before the military. Adverse childhood experiences that made me really good at compartmentalizing information. And so I showed up with, very low self-esteem, very low self-worth, even being in 75th Ranger Regiment, even teaching sniper school at Fort Benning. I hadn't figured any of that stuff out yet. And it took me, spending almost 10 years, to work through all this stuff to figure it out. And so that's where all this is coming from. And I think it's really important. And I'm excited to share this with you.
Hey,
So,
Jim, can you make the screen like a few times bigger just so it's
yeah,
easier to read the words? Thanks, man.
yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have any questions about anything that I'm talking about, feel free to stop me.
Perfect.
So, I like to sort of operationalize all this stuff by focusing on resilience, right? It's something that we all care about, but resilience means something different to everybody. It's different depending on what geography you're in, what race you identify with, or what culture you're from, all of those things, what age you are, if you're male or female, right? Um, so the best definition that I found, because there's not really complete consensus in the research on what resilience is, but resilience is a process of negotiating, managing, and adapting to significant sources of stress or trauma. Assets and resources within the individual, their life, and environment facilitate this capacity for adaptation and bouncing back in the face of adversity. Now, the important part that I would like to emphasize is that across the life course, the experience of resilience will vary. So, I emphasize that to remind you to get better at giving yourself some grace, right? I think a lot of us really struggle with that, especially high performers like you guys. And so, this is, I think, another really useful sort of binary way of thinking about trauma. I'm assuming that many of the people on here have also deployed or also experienced trauma because trauma really is a normal part of life. It's something that everyone's going to experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to result in a lifetime or extended period of time of maladaptive health, like isolating yourself and, getting depressed, anxiety, all those types of things, or just feeling afflicted, if you will. So maybe some of you guys have heard of this term. I didn't make it up, post-traumatic growth. I love it because as far as I'm concerned, you really have kind of like two paths. You can continue to subscribe to this idea that you're broken, identify with a PTSD diagnosis, or depression or whatever it is, you can identify with that and live in the past. Or you can cognitively reframe that into something that was a valuable thing that you've learned and turn that into a catalyst for growth. And a lot of times, I'm a good example of this. That's where I found my purpose, because I don't ever want any of you guys to feel the way that I had for so long. It's awful. And in case any of you haven't seen yet, the VA just released new suicide numbers at 44 people a day, 44 veterans a day.
Oh my God, really? It
Yeah.
doubled from, oh my
Yeah. And law enforcement's in the same boat. A lot of those people that are serving in those roles as first responders and law enforcement, 58% of cops take their life. That's a number that I just heard yesterday. I work with a nonprofit called QRF Up. They have like a crisis response app. It's kind of like an extension of 988, where a veteran or first responder, that's who it was built for, can hit a button and immediately be connected to a therapist who will triage that situation, and then send a veteran instead of law enforcement to go help them out if it's safe. Um, so, anyways, with that said, that's why I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this. I want you guys to understand, like, um, that trauma really is a normal part of life, and it doesn't have to, continue to be something that becomes a barrier for you because it becomes really disruptive in your relationships as well. Ask my wife. All right, let me move on a little bit. So I believe that the path forward is a holistic approach, right? The mental, the physical, spiritual, environmental, because like your health, earning potential, relationships, and opportunity, if any of those four things, your mental, physical, spiritual, environmental wellness, is not well, then it impacts all the other ones. It's all very interconnected. It's kind of easy to see that. So these are what I've defined as like characteristics of a resilient mind. Being comfortable with unknown situations, being able to focus, have cognitive horsepower, self-reliance, self-worth, self-control. And I'm just going to share these things with you guys real quick. I'm not really trying to give you this like full class, but just give you enough information for you to, consider it for yourself, do your own personal audit, and look at like, because what I challenge everybody to do in the program that I built, it's called the Hero Transformation Program, is look at these characteristics and see how well you're applying, these to your life, and turn this into some sort of action plan, right? Like if you realize that, you're not very, you're not, your, say your spiritual resilience is crap, right? Like here's a common one. Many of us fear vulnerability, right? We view it as weakness. But actually, to be vulnerable is to be the most courageous. It takes a lot of strength and courage to be seen, to ask for help, to genuinely express yourself, and be authentic. But to be authentic is also the source of joy, it's something that we all care very much about. So here's just kind of an example of how they're all very connected. Um, Environmental resilience, this is super important. Like, and I want you to think too, these are all things that we have control over, right? So that's nice. We absolutely have a choice on what kind of food we want to put in our body, what kind of food we bring into our home, we go grocery shopping. Is this something that's going to cause inflammation in my body? And subsequently your mind, like you can have insulin resistance in your brain and it reduce your ability to be resilient to the effects of stress, so those are choices that you have to make, that you get to make, right? Like, are you gonna stop exercising now it's not a requirement for you, but it's not somebody else's standard. So you're just going to stop doing that? You're going to start drinking a lot more than you ever have. You know what I mean? Like those things are going to, fast track you to feeling like dog shit, and absolutely not owning your purpose. Um, Tribe, also very important. I think this is another source of pain for veterans is, we have this community that we so deeply engage with, and relate to. And then you come out into the civilian world and it's very disconnected. Everybody's staring at their phone. Nobody, well, not, I shouldn't say nobody. People don't really have like these high standards for themselves, and like you can very quickly feel very alone, right? But my advice to veterans, something that I had to learn, which was I found very helpful, is don't try to fit in. You know what I mean? Like keep your high standards. Don't forget how badass you are and the things that you have learned to be capable of achieving. You know what I mean? Like, don't hang your hat up just because you got out of the military. Continue to be awesome because that's what the civilian world needs. They need us to not crumble, but to show up and take charge. You know what I mean? Like, I do it all the time in any civilian circles that I'm in. When I'm feeling great, like I naturally lead and people respond really well to it. But if you're clinging to this narrative that the military screwed you up, whether that's true or not, um how you choose to live after that is, like I said, it's a choice. Um and you can just kind of let that stuff go. um all right, so I've already kind of talked about all this stuff. Honestly, I would like to have some of you guys ask me some questions. Does anybody have any you're thinking of? Like, has anybody felt attacked with any of the things that I've said? Is anybody dealing with any of these kinds of things right now that you would like that you think maybe your other brothers and sisters here on this call are dealing with that we could talk about?
Go ahead, Cedric.
Hey Jim, good
Hey,
morning. Thanks for
good morning.
joining us today, and sharing, being vulnerable and sharing, I guess your story. But yeah, a lot of things you're saying kind of resonate with me. Like the stress and anxiety of trying to find a job, like how you're saying your earning potential. Um, I'll be vulnerable a little bit. I've been away from my wife and my family for like a good portion of my career. Um, And so I finally came home thanks to the SkillBridge program, um, and it being able to be part of Seven Eagle and being part of Allegiant Vets. So they're doing a collaboration. So, but being part of this has been tremendous for my family, and being able to let me come home and reunite with them sooner, because I was just geo bacheloring and living out of a suitcase every 3 years, every 3 to 4 years, overseas. I did 10 years overseas, by myself, and my wife's lived through me being away for deployments, and one of my deployments was a year long. I had left the area when they pulled out of Afghanistan a month prior, you know and then I was in Korea for a whole year while my wife was here, with the kids, and don't it was tough, like having a while everybody else is hanging out, I'm in on the weekends, I'm sitting in the apartment having to talk to, make sure I'm making time for my family because my morning was her night, kind of thing. um, so I definitely resonate with those kinds of things. But how did you kind of, I guess the question for you would be like, how did you kind of grow through that? I would like to hear more about um, things like that was successful, like how you reunited back with your wife and how you kind of just became successful in your. I see that you're your own business. So that's awesome. So you kind of like run your own show, in a sense. But yeah, I'd like to hear more. Just what kind of techniques and tips you use for us married guys to reunite with family, and because it has been tough, you know,
Vulnerability.
with the wife and stuff. So
Vulnerability is extremely important. And to be honest with you, like, so when I got out of the military, I'd been married for 10 years. What made my transition even harder was that within 3 months, my wife asked for divorce. And in my mind, the only thing that I was doing differently is I was not in the army and now I was in college. And, we also had a 1-year-old daughter that I was, feed and wash bottles at night, do my homework. Um, but honestly, like when I came back from a 15-month deployment, um, it's not really a good story. Like, I don't know, everything was different. I felt like a stranger in my own home. And so I don't think either one of us really that happy. We got married young. But the lesson that I learned from all of it is when that was going on, right? Like when I fresh out of the military, starting to kind of experience some of these weird PTSD symptoms, um, in my when I, was told that she wanted a divorce, I felt absolutely nothing. And because, at least for me, and maybe this is true for other people, because it's kind of how the brain works. When somebody threatens your vulnerability, you just kind of wall it off. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, it's
defense.
like, yeah, you just lose access to emotion. Even if you're standing there and you like want so badly to do something about it, you just like can't. That's where I was, which was kind of creepy to me, and so I was trying to figure out what to do, but
Oh
it
my
was
god, like
well,
you're just hitting on everything. Like I
I was
felt I
in the
told my
middle.
wife, like, I felt like I'm living in a hotel, like, everything I do is, like, wrong, and it's like, "Hey, why did you do that?" And it's just like, we get into arguments instead of trying to fix it, I just, like, shut down, and it's just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing kinda thing, you know? It's all new to me.
Yeah, I mean, I had for a while, you know, so I'll tell you this story. I figured this out in the middle of a panic attack. I like it was a really bad one, and all of a sudden in the middle of it, I was just like wanting so badly to go back to being a sniper because honestly, I loved the job. I was really good at it, and I'm like, what the hell? Why am I thinking about that right now? And then I realized I was like, because it's fucking easier. It was easier to go live that life than actually sit and face, myself and the things that I was dealing with and to be vulnerable, to admit that like I've got some work to do, like there's some things that I need to figure out. Um, and so I had to sort of intentionally select for vulnerability, even if it kind of felt weird. But like there was ways that I would do it with friends or family, and just be like very open and honest about what I was dealing with, talk to people about how I was feeling, and just be very active in, you know, doing things that are healthy. I have this philosophy that we all have the prescription for healing within inside of us. Like, I don't need to sit here and tell you what you need to do, how you need to eat, that you need to exercise more, that you should be more loving, have more empathy. You know what I mean? Like, we all already know those things, but it's just our ego gets really in the way of that. And so I encourage to get more to the point where you can be as in charge of yourself as you would like to be, to where you can look yourself in the mirror and be like, fuck yeah, you know, and have the discipline that you want to. Um, I think the fastest way to that is to, like meditation. Meditation is really big. and helping you sort of understand how to let intrusive thoughts just pass by, and kind of focus your mind. Doing things like yoga is really helpful. That's another form of meditation. Even just going for walks, having some time where you're um, focused on yourself and listening to your own voice, And the more that you do that, the easier it gets. I kind of liken it to a bank account. I call it like your self-disciplined bank account. The more times that you choose to do what you say you're going to do, the easier it gets. And then when you don't, like if you committed to, say, going to the gym every day and you decide to make excuses, and not go, because that's what happens, right? When we're in disagreements with ourselves, when we create that cognitive dissonance, our brains cannot handle it. And this is like a normal thing that no human can even avoid. But this is what the result of it is that we justify our behavior, right? And so you continue to justify, like, well, my ankle kind of hurts today, or whatever, I look fine. It's not that important. You know what I mean? You'll talk yourself out of doing all the things that you know that you should be doing. So, um, I don't know. Hopefully that was helpful.
No,
Um,
yeah, Jim, it was, and it's crazy. I didn't think we are gonna have this kind of discussion this morning. I just thought, we're gonna have another guy that talks about his success and how from this big company and he's doing this and but yeah,
but
I go in the mornings. I try to go in the mornings to the gym because as soon as you wake up, you don't have that time to really think about. But I've been there where I make excuses and I'll be like, I'll just go tomorrow, or I'll just, I don't need to go today. Like you'll try to talk yourself out of it. So
yeah,
that's why I
I mean,
find
it's like,
like mornings
ask
are
me
best
how I
for me
know.
'cause the more the time goes throughout the day, it's just like the more my mind starts trying to like tell me I don't need to do things, and it's just like, so I try to attack it right away in the morning. But
Well,
thanks
I'll
for
tell
sharing.
you, self-care is how you express self-love, right? So if you're one of those people, like I literally had a therapist tell me when I was teaching sniper school that I didn't love myself, and I'm like, okay, dude, what does that mean? Am I supposed to like put little affirmation sticky notes on my mirror? Like, you're beautiful. Like, that's not anything that I was ever
That's
gonna do.
great.
But you know, um, if you've ever heard, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Gabor Mate. He's a psychiatrist. He's been on like documentaries and stuff. He's got a really good book. Um, The Myth of Normal is what it's called. Um,
Okay.
it's a really good book. If that kind of helps you with a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, mostly
Myth
just
of
like
normal. Okay.
letting go of your past, it's a big thing. And I know that you guys are the Seven Eagle group is, very focused on career, businesses, um, which is why I wanted to share this with you because to be able to own your purpose, which is going to be very important for you, like veterans don't get out and work at McDonald's. Like as much as your first sergeant used to tell you that that's going to happen if you don't re-enlist, um, that's not a very satisfying career, like you're not going to be happy unless you're crushing it and like making an impact somewhere. And 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 I want that for you, right? And I've wanted that for myself for a really long
I want
time.
that for you too.
And there's no way that I could fucking do it unless I do all these things. Like I have to wake up and choose myself every day and make hard decisions sometimes, like don't eat like a dickhead, or a feral
Yeah.
6-year-old,
No.
you know. Make yourself go exercise. Keep doing all the things that you've been doing in the military, maybe more, because especially if you want to start your own business, which I think is a great idea for veterans. Just because, like, what are you gonna do? Go own somebody else's purpose? Like, I
Yeah.
don't like being told what to do personally. So I've been self-employed in a variety of ways pretty much since like 2016. Um, and I think a lot of you guys could probably relate to that. And it's nice, like if you want to do all this stuff, like if you want to do some yoga in the morning or go to the gym, like you don't have to be at work. Like you can make your own schedule and make, 10 to 100 times more money than you ever will working for someone else. Is it the easy path? Hell no. It's harder than anything that I ever did in the military, but to me it is extremely worth it, because now I'm at the point, like, I built this program from my heart with veterans in mind, and now I have the opportunity to work with an organization that's building facilities specifically for veterans and law enforcement in all 50 states, and be able to teach and share this stuff there, have gyms and teaching kitchens and greenhouses and permaculture gardens, and create this place of healing where we're treating the whole person. And like, I can't tell you how excited I am to be working on that. I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning last night, putting numbers together for a business plan to pitch to an investor that's already on board, you know so that's extremely exciting for me to be able to participate in that, to have that be what I wake up and work on every day.
So I just want to add, man. First of all, Cedric, thank you for sharing your personal story, man. It was super powerful, and I appreciate you doing that. And Jim, I mean, you have such a nice way about you of talking about this stuff. I mean, like you
Tom
said,
Dirty.
man, we are so much of our focus is we want to get these guys permanent jobs because when somebody's unemployed, it's when a lot of the wheels can fall off, when everything can go to shit when that happens. So we want to work hard to get them that job. But you said it exactly, man. You need to have that foundation. You need to decide exactly what am I going to do? What's going to make me the happiest? Do I want to be at home? Do I want to be working for someone else? Want to be running my own gig? And all those questions have to be answered first before you can go down that path. Because you know, work, just like, anything, work is work. And it can be really tough when you're working towards somebody else's goals and visions and not your own. So you want to just make sure everything is aligning as best you can. But I wanted to ask AJ, are you put in the chat? Would you be willing to come on, AJ, and talk a little bit about the hurdle you faced with the kids? You willing to do that? Get Jim's take. Wait, we can't hear you. Put your audio on, AJ. It's still not. And anyone else, we have, 15 more minutes if Jim's able to keep them on. Put up your hand if you're comfortable sharing something and want
Hey,
any
if you guys want, I shared a document in the chat. It is a couple of self-assessment tools that I built that I use for everybody that I put through the program,
Mhm.
that helps you kind of, you get to score yourself on all these resilience characteristics, apply it to the hero domains, and then at the end of it, I'm sure many of you guys have heard of Brene Brown.
Yeah.
Uh, she's like a guilt, shame, vulnerability researcher. I stole this exercise from her that's in there. It's a values exercise, help you identify what your core values are, because that's super important, to be able to look at your life like, are my behaviors actually in line with what my values are? You know? Like family is something that's important to you, health is important to you. What are you doing to align with those? And further, is my career or my business that I'm creating also in line with those values? Because that's how you create, that is, what helps create that sustainable endeavor. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if your business isn't in line with your values, you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Every time it's really hard, which it will be, you won't want to do it.
No, that's great. Well, I'd love to incorporate more of your stuff into our regular curriculum. We could talk about that later. But all right, so AJ got his mic working. Why don't you go, AJ, and then Olivia, you go next.
I think, yeah. Am I good now?
You're good?
Sorry. Yeah. So before, I think what you're referring to is my comment about losing the boys.
Yeah.
Was that what you were talking about? Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
So what I meant by that was like losing all my friends at work. That's kind of like the hardest thing because they were like um through my last 4 years that I was an EOD instructor, like they were the people that got me through like a lot of stuff. And uh last September, I think even it even better like to talk about would be like last September, yeah, about a year now. Actually, in 5 days it'd be a year now. I was in a motorcycle accident, and that was you talk about finding your purpose. Like that was the thing that really put into perspective how much the everyday person, the random people passing by, can actually matter to you. Because I had a few people. I had a few people stop and just make sure I was okay. They kept me from running out into traffic. Like, um, I
Mhm.
think that was the thing that gave me my purpose. And it's the stuff like that that really changes your paradigm. And you talk about turning the trauma into a win. I think the road rash sucked. Breaking bones sucked, but I look at it as a win because it really did change how I look at regular everyday people on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So can you define it for us? What's your purpose?
To help people, to be one of those people that can make a difference in someone else's life. Because I had I had two ladies I had two ladies stop, and all bloodied up, and they were still in the uniform. They were on their way home. I had two ladies just stop and hold my hand, and sorry, and they just waited there with me. They were talking to me. I had one guy uh one guy stopped, and after the accident, my boot got ripped off. So I had one boot on, and my other boot was like in the intersection, and that was like my focus. I was like dead set on getting my boot for some reason out of the road, and he straight up like held me down and stopped me from running out into traffic. And that was like my just the little things like that, just people stopping and actually doing something. Because I know a lot of people, and no shame on them, but a lot of people probably just saw that and was like, wow, that sucked, and you know went about their day. But that's my purpose now, is to help, to make a difference.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when you're in service of other people, it's really easy to experience gratitude. And I think that that's just like another thing that I know you've probably heard it from everybody, like Tony Robbins, gratitude, it's super important. Like if you haven't figured that out yet, it really is.
I
Um,
think too, the way I saw other people was like they were in the way. People who are driving their cars in traffic, or they were just in the way and of me doing what I had to do. But now it gave me like a love for the ambulance drivers. It gave me a love for the security forces guys who locked down the street. Like I just it's hard to describe if you haven't been through it. But it was like I that, that was one of the hardest things that I had to go through, and I went through it with strangers. you know Going anything outside of that, I was going through it with my coworkers, with the people I was in the military with, the people that I was training with. So I expected that. I never expected to go through something that hard with a bunch of strangers that were transient. I'll probably never see them again in my life. But it's just different perspective for sure.
that's awesome. Yeah, I was in sociology class years and years ago, and I don't know, I got really into some weird reading. That's when I discovered like Carl Jung and stuff like on my own. So things got weird for a minute, but I realized that we're all a product of our perception, and it that fact, well, to include our thoughts, right? Because the way that we think about things is the way that we perceive them, which we have control over. But um, it shows up in matters all the time because people are always like, man, my trauma is nowhere near as bad as yours. And I'm like, please don't say that. You know what I mean? Because we are all a product for our perception. Like if I see somebody get shot in the face, I might laugh, where everybody else around me is like horrified. Um, I know it's got a little dark, but you see my point. You know what I mean? Like, um, yeah, and it helps with having empathy for other people. You don't
Well,
have to,
your hardest day is your hardest day, right? I think, and kids kind of put that in perspective too. It's like their whole day can crumble with something very trivial, but like their hardest day is their hardest day in their life, you know?
right? Yeah, exactly. Was there somebody else that wanted
Yeah,
to?
Livia, thank you, AJ, for that. Livia, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks, Andy.
Hey, can y'all hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for speaking today, Jim. I really resonated with a lot of what you were speaking about, especially the post-traumatic growth aspect um of resilience. So a little background on me. I joined the military 4 years ago, trying to leave a tough living situation, and I got stationed overseas these past 4 years. And so now I'm navigating coming back um to that same sort of situation. I've moved out of state. I moved from Germany to Florida in the middle of a career change. I have new dynamics with family, and everything is just changing all at once. And so my question for you is how you manage changes in your routine as you try and incorporate, healthy routines. Just because I have a lot of areas in my life that are just changing, and I'm just afraid of adding more. And I know that there are areas of my health that could use more support, like exercising and making sure I'm eating more healthy and staying connected to people that I just moved away from. And I'm I know that I'm in this very very vulnerable point of my move, and I'm just wondering what sort of techniques you use when adding changes and how you might prioritize and like how many things you change at once. Um, because
Those are actually really good questions. And so let me try to start to unpack it a little bit. Because you asked a few different things. One is like, how do you essentially manage changing environment? Right? Like if your environment's changing, and your routine and your structure is changing. Is that kind of what you're asking? Like, how do you do that?
yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
suppose yeah. Bit of
Um,
like grounding yourself in the middle of the chaos a little bit.
yeah, sure. So, I think mostly I just sort of start with two things. One is like, what do I care about? What's important to me? Like, it kind of goes back to that. What are your values? And and then focus on what you have control over. Like low hanging fruit. If having some kind of morning routine where you're exercising or doing something good for yourself. I mean, I'm always going to tell you to do that, like that should be a part of your daily routine is some kind of self-care, so that way you are able to be grounded because you get really busy and swept up in your day and trying to carve out 5 minutes for yourself to meditate seems impossible. But we always make time for what we care the most about, right? That's a proven fact. Your life is a perfect historical record of that. So I would say start there, start with the things that like make you feel grounded, connecting with yourself and the things that feel good. And then from there, um, I don't know, like write it down. There's a lot of credence into like actually writing out like 5 things that you're going to do the next day, the day before the night before. Like write out like these are the 5 things that this is my list, right? These are the things they're gonna make me have a W for tomorrow. And then do those things. Do the things that, you're prioritizing for yourself because it's important to you. And then knock out that list. And then everything else, if you do anything else on top of that, good. But if you do that every single day, 5 things, and let's say out of, Monday through Friday, 5 days, 3 out of the 5 days, you hit at least 3 out of 5 of your goals. Well, that means, not each one of those days was a W. That week was a W. If 3 out of 4 weeks that month, um, you did everything on your list, that entire month was a W. You know what I'm saying? So you can kind of work. So, like, I don't know exactly what it is that you're dealing with, but those are some strategies that have been really helpful for me. Also, journaling. While you're at it, while you're sitting in bed, coming up with your list for the next day, write down your thoughts because when you just leave it up here, it's like floating around and feels like chaos. But when you write it down on a piece of paper, you just linearized it. There's a beginning and there's an end, and it kind of helps your brain sort of reconcile those things, if that makes sense. And you'll probably find, some wisdom inside of there that you have, that wasn't so clear before when all of these things are just floating around in your head.
Right, right. Thank
Does
you.
that
Yeah,
help?
I think that it is helpful. It's just even just trying to frame a bit of the chaos, like in a single question, in a way where I was like trying to linearize the chaos is a very helpful line that I think is going to stick with me for a while. And I think I need to start journaling again. I think you're
To
right.
to answer your other question, like how many things can you change at once? Uh, the people that need the most change can handle the least amount at once, right? So that's a personal question for yourself. If you feel very overwhelmed with everything that's happening right now, then I would focus on one thing and crush it. And then once you've got that baked in as a habit that you're doing every day, then add something else. And that could be something as simple as I'm going to stop drinking energy drinks and make sure that I drink at least a gallon of water every day.
Yeah, that's so funny you bring that up. That's like the thing that I was working on. The movers were here, they brought my household goods, and I gave them all of my energy drinks. And I was like, all right, I'm not gonna buy anymore. And
It's
so
not good for you.
that's
Caffeine puts
that's
you
so
into a fight
funny.
or flight state,
Yeah,
and if you're
yeah,
constantly manufacturing epinephrine, then it can disrupt your hormone balance and, all
exactly.
this other stuff. So, um, yeah, if you have a caffeine addiction, um, that's a good place to start.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Olivia, for that. One thing you said, Jim, that resonated with me, which is like, we all go through tough times, daily, weekly, whatever. But I know when I'm always feeling the worst, when I just stop and do something for someone else, like you said, volunteer or whatever. I get on the phone with a vet and spend an hour helping them through something. It always makes me feel like some reason, like my problems go away for that hour and you stop thinking about them. And I thought that's great advice. So, like, even as you guys start working, whether it's an hour a week, an hour a month, just do something that you can give back to the community in some area that interests you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like extremely energizing for me. I could be having a shit day just like you. Like it happened to me one time. I connected with this guy on LinkedIn, Alex Rogers, and he was getting ready to get out of the Navy. He's been on the SEAL teams for 12 years, and he wanted to chat. I was like, cool, because if you guys look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see like all I write about is all this stuff. Um, Mostly no one reads it, but I continue to write anyways. But anyways, we had a like 2 hour conversation, and I was having a shitty day that day. I was like in the process of moving, had been staying in this Airbnb for like 6 weeks. My house still hasn't sold, but anyways, I was just kind of overwhelmed trying to run a nonprofit in response to Hurricane Helene and all this chaos going on in my life. But yeah, after talking to him, I was just like, yeah, I was floating on the clouds, just, getting to talk to another veteran,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now he's out. I actually was just in Long Beach, California to go watch him fight in a combat jiu-jitsu match. Um, and he's working with us as one of our personal trainers.
Oh,
So
that is awesome. That's great, man.
yeah, he's working on his MBA right now. So I was
Yeah.
like, dude, you want to help us train people? I'll pay you.
Yeah. Can you
Um,
elaborate a little more on I'm just such a big fan. Like once you start working, like it's so easy to just get so caught up in the work and that's all you're doing. You work, you come home, you eat and fall asleep and you do it all again the next day. But can you talk a little bit about the benefits of just having something for yourself? You were telling Olivia, like, what do you love? Like, what do you love to do? Is it like playing the piano, playing with your dog, just something and carving out time daily or weekly where you can have that escape from the grind of the paycheck, so to speak.
Well, I think it's a requirement, honestly, like especially if you want to perform at the highest level, which if you want to be an entrepreneur, then that's what you're signing up for. But even, in executive positions, in, corporate job, or literally anything that you're doing, showing up for your family, you have to show up for yourself. Um, that's number one because, I mean, I've been guilty of it myself. I grew up in Ranger Regiment, so we'll sleep when we're dead. But if you continue with this mindset that like, oh, I can just push through, I can do more, quit being a pussy, self-talk, make improvements, not excuses. All if that's your mindset all the time, then yeah, like even if you think that you can, eventually you will absolutely burn out. And then your ability to show up for work and execute at the level that you need to and that you want for yourself will be completely diminished, you know? And that shows up like, your patience for people, your verbal fluency, being able to like your working memory, all those things can be very affected. And you start getting stressed out and you're producing cortisol, then you literally lose access to the front part of your brain, your frontal lobe, which is responsible for, excuse me, executive function, morality, ethics. It's why people do things that they regret when they're angry, So I coach people a lot, like all this is a choice. You can get
Yeah.
pissed off if somebody pulls out in front of you in traffic, or not. Like, do you want to get beat by that situation? Like it's just a different way of thinking about it because we don't want to lose our faculties, right? We want to be able to show up in life at in the best version of ourselves in everything that we're doing, not just work, but also for our families,
Yeah.
because if we stop showing up for our families, then that affects your work life. That affects,
Totally.
maybe if you start getting depressed because your relationship with your wife sucks, like what are you gonna, start you can swing by and get a six pack of beer on your way home now because you don't want to deal with it. And that starts affecting your sleep. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's not a nice to have, it's like a must have,
Yeah.
to carve
No
out
doubt.
time for yourself. Dan Sullivan teaches people, if you guys have heard of him, the founder of Strategic Coach. He uses this like 3 day cycle of like a repair rejuvenation day, right? Where he's just off, prioritizing self, doing things outdoors, hiking, whatever, cooking healthy meals,
Yeah.
spending time with friends and family. And then the second day is sort of like his prep day to prepare for focus day. And then after focus day, it goes back to rejuvenation day.
Hmm.
Uh, and he said that he's been doing that with his business, which makes over $10 million a year for 25 years. And they've got 100 employees. So It's totally doable. Um, and you just have to make it a priority, you
Yeah.
know? Like you recognize that self-care is self-love, and that's a requirement so that way you can perform at the highest level, then just do it, you know? You've got to draw a line in the sand and set boundaries, you know? Like if you don't have personal, professional boundaries and communicate those effectively, then everybody's just going to walk all over all
Yeah.
of them unknowingly, and it's going to be irritating to you, and you're going to get frustrated and burned out.
Yeah. Great advice. AJ, did you have something quick for him?
Yeah, I wanted to ask how does extreme resiliency get after the physical fitness aspect? Is it in person or do you try to do it like a virtual type?
Right now, my offer is primarily online. Eventually, once we get these facilities built that we're working on, um, yeah, I'll be doing some in-person coaching along with all the other people that we work with together. And essentially, the fitness philosophy, you know, is it's always going to be custom tailored to everyone. You know, we've got people that are prepping for bodybuilding competitions. I've got a female that just turned 50, you know, that just wanted to lose, you know, 40 pounds, had some gut issues, issues with depression and stuff. Like all those things have been remedied for her, which is awesome. I like
Yeah.
working with women because they just do so much. They just do it. They do all the things. It's so much easier. I don't have to like convince them to just do it. Um, so and like, but I started her off because she had like ankle and knee pain, walking, you know, spending some time on an elliptical and doing yoga 3 times a week.
Hmm.
Um, and then focusing on the eating. You can't exercise a poor diet away, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and vice versa.
And if you guys aren't aware, like, because I don't really see this communicated even by registered dietitians. I actually kind of attack them on LinkedIn all the time for this. But if you're inflamed, if you're consuming foods that cause inflammation, it will cause you to hold on to any kind of body fat that you've got. Like it'll actually cause stem cells to differentiate into adipose tissue, just from being inflamed all the time. So it's just like it's a hack. Like if you just don't put things in you that cause inflammation, you just lose weight. Like you don't
I
even have
think
to like count calories or anything. It's just, you know, your body does what it was built to do.
yeah, and I think at a more zoomed out level, our the way we word I need to lose weight or you need to lose weight is kind of skewed. I think we need to start pushing more towards we need to change our body composition because when people lose weight really fast, it's mostly going to be muscle mass or
Yeah.
water weight,
And
and
that's
it's
your
not
engine.
necessarily healthy.
Yeah, you lose muscle mass and you know, your basal metabolic rate decreases. And so your ability to burn calories decreases and it just becomes harder and harder. Yeah, absolutely. Most of the
Um,
people, a lot of people, like if they don't have good muscle tone, especially, you know, if they're pushing 40 or more, you know, I definitely try to work with them to prioritize hypertrophy to build that engine up, you know.
Right.
yeah, good advice. Jim, I put in the chat the link to your the 90-day course. Is that where you want to direct people who are interested in learning more? Is that a good
Oh
spot
yeah,
or
absolutely.
something else? Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
yeah.
And like I said, like you mentioned, I also read a book. It's got a lot of this stuff in there, sort of applied to somebody starting a
Okay.
company.
Perfect. All right. So whatever we can do to help you, we're always here for you. If you need me to push out messages about any of your stuff, it's so valuable. And this was incredible, man. I'm confident everyone got something out of this. So I thank you for what you do for this community, man. You're truly changing it for the better. So we appreciate you, and hopefully you'll come back again when we have some new students soon.
Yeah, man, I'm just super grateful to be here,
Yeah.
Jordy. Thank you
Good.
guys for listening to me talk about resilience. And for those of you that shared, thank you for that too. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, everybody.
Like
It's a great session.
that is leadership to me, like being able to step out and demonstrate vulnerability makes it easier for everybody around you to do it also.
Yeah, you got it, man. Spot on. Jim, all right, keep cranking, buddy. You're doing awesome. We appreciate